So welcome back, and we are tackling some geometry. We're going to start off just with what is called the geometry of straight lines. So we're going to dive straight in. We're on page 38. So the first big idea is that angles around a point, all the angles around a point add up to 360 degrees. So right, and I'm not sure why this number of 360 degrees was decided on. Maybe because it's close to the number of days in the year, but it actually does, it's quite a useful number. 360 has lots and lots of factors. All right, so in geometry, a really important idea is for us always to give a reason. And the reason for this particular result, the reason we've written it in brackets here, angles round a point. Okay, so let's do this first question together and see if we can work out what the size of x is. Right, now you might be wondering, wow, why are we still doing equations? Well, everything in maths is connected to everything else. So have a look at this. X plus 225 is 360. Now we must give a reason, right? And our reason is angles round a point. All right, and now we need to solve this very simple little equation. So we are going to subtract 225 from both sides, and we get our final answer. X is 135 degrees. Okay, we're going to ask you to pause the video briefly and try the next one. Okay, so this one, x plus 315 degrees is 360 degrees. All right, and our reason, angles round a point. Okay, and the last thing we're going to do is we're going to subtract 315 from both sides to get our final answer. X is 45 degrees. Okay, right. We're going to now ask you to pause the video and try questions 3 and 4. All right, and then there's also space on the next page if you want to make up some extra examples. But this is quite a simple result, right? But try and write down your kind of full equation with a reason and then solve it. Okay, so pause the video for just a minute or two, try question 3 and 4. Right, so we've got let's have a look. We've got 220 plus 2x plus 5x equals 360 degrees. And the reason is angles round a point. Okay, now let's solve this. Let's first just collect the like terms. So we're going to get 7x plus 220 equals 360. Right, we're going to subtract 220 from both sides. 360 minus 220 is 140. And lastly, we're going to divide both sides by 7. 140 divided by 7, 20. Okay, and there's our solution to that one. Right, let's look at number 4. 5x minus 20 is plus 2x plus 30 is equal to 360. So I've not done that very nicely at all. Let's collect our like terms. 5x and 2x is 7x. 7x, and we've got plus 10 minus 20 plus 30 plus 10, that equals 360 degrees. Right, now we want to solve this equation. Remember the idea of a set of scales. All right, we want to balance this. So let's subtract 10 from both sides, and we get 7x equals 350 degrees. All right, we don't want 7 times x, we just want 1 times x. How do we undo timesing by 7? That's right, we divide by 7. On which side? That's right, on both sides. 350 divided by 7 is 50 degrees, and there's our final answer for that one. Okay, as we said, there's some extra space here to make up some extra examples. The next thing we're going to talk about is angles and their sizes, all right? And an acute angle is one which is less than 90 degrees. I think quite an easy one to remember, easy word, cute, all right? Small things are often cute, all right? A right angle is one which is 90 degrees. So right angle is 90 degrees. And on a diagram, we will typically show a right angle with a little square. All right, 90 degrees. An obtuse angle is one which is greater than 90 degrees. All right, so greater than 90 degrees. For example, 114. And then a reflex angle is one which is greater than 180 degrees. So we've got these 4 terms that we need to be completely comfortable with. All right, acute, right angle, obtuse, reflex, as they get bigger. All right, okay, so let's have a look. Let's see if you can just pause the video and next to each angle just write what it is. And you're going to choose one of these 4 words. I'll write them at the top here again for you. Acute, right, obtuse, and reflex. So just pause the video very quickly and just next to each of those write down which angle we've got. Okay, so this first one, obtuse. This next one, right. This one, acute. This one, reflex. Notice we're not talking about this angle here. We're talking about the angle that's been marked. This little angle would be acute. The other one is reflex. This one here, acute. And this one here, right. Okay, right, a couple more. This one, reflex. Right, acute, obtuse. Right, now we've left some space here. So just pause the video briefly, draw a couple of angles and get your friend to classify them. Okay, so there's one, hopefully you've got a ruler you can use and you'll do it a little bit better than me. Just remember to mark which angle you're talking about. Right, so over here we're talking about this angle maybe, whereas over here I'm talking about this angle maybe. Right, draw maybe 4 and then swap books with your friend and get your friend to just write in what they are. Okay, so the next thing is we're going to try and estimate the sizes of angles. All right, if you've got a protractor, all right, then you can actually measure the angle. All right, and I'm just going to show you what a protractor looks like. Okay, so there we go. I'm holding a protractor in my hand here. Actually quite difficult to see. Maybe if I hold my hand against it, you can see it a little bit better. But it's basically a clear plastic device, and it's got the angles measured on, just like in the picture. And what we do, we get this point over here, all right, and we put that on the vertex of the angle, and then we can read off the size of the angle. Right, what we're going to do here is we're going to try and estimate these angles. Okay, let's see if we can guess what they are, remembering that a right angle is 90 degrees. Okay, this one here, so we're going to ask you to pause the video and we're going to see if we can estimate them. Just write down what you think the sizes of each of them are, and then we'll have a look. And I'm going to try them myself as well. Okay, so let's take a look. For the first one, I said about 43 degrees. All right, the next one I said looks like about 120 degrees maybe. This one is a little bit less than 90, so I said 78. This one over here, I'll tell you what I did here. I actually didn't really estimate that, but I actually said, oh, this looks completely wrong, in fact, okay? I'm actually changing my answer here to 300 degrees. All right, what I actually thought was that this here looks about 60. And what do I know about angles the whole way around? They add up to 360. So I'm going with about 300 there. This one I said maybe about 30. These are not the right answers, by the way. These are my guesses, my estimates. This one here, I said 220. I'm way out. All right. This here looks to me to be about 40 degrees. So actually about 320 degrees. Okay. Remember that the angles around a point add up to 360. This one here looks very close to 90. All right, I didn't put a little corner on it because I didn't want to tell us it was 90. And then this last one I've said 140. Let's have a look. The actual exact answers are 40 degrees. I'm not unhappy with 43, 40. That's quite close. The next one, 130. So the actual answer is 130. Not too bad. The next one, 84. I said 78. Number 4, 288. I said 300. Not too bad. Number 5, 32. Wow, I was close there. All right. Number 6, okay, I said 320. And in fact, number 6 is 314 degrees. Number 7 is in fact exactly 90 degrees. And number 8, I said 133 and it was 140. Guys, estimation, being able to look at something and sort of get a rough guess, a rough approximation of its size is a really useful life skill, okay? All right, so if you've got a protractor, obviously you can draw some more angles, get your friend to guess them, and then you can actually, you can measure them and see how close you guys are. All right, okay, so now the next thing we're going to talk about is naming angles. All right, so over here, there are actually 3 different angles. There's that one that's been marked, there's this one over here, that's been marked with purple, and there's this one over here that's been marked with red. Right, if we're talking about this one here that was originally marked, we would call it A, B, C. We could also call it C, B, A. So we could actually start at C and then go to B and then go to A, same angle. All right, okay, over here, this one is a different angle. It's CBD or DBC, and we put a little hat, little cuppy over the actual angle size. All right. Sometimes in a diagram we can also mark angles with a little number here. That is not referring to the size. Now this angle we could call it ABC. Or it's actually easier to call it B1. All right, we need to be comfortable with both things. All right, the next word that we're going to come up with is a word adjacent. And what adjacent means, it means next to. All right, next to. Okay, and so here, D1 is adjacent to D2. Those angles are next to one another. D1 is not adjacent to D3. D3 and D2 are adjacent. So adjacent just means next to. Okay, now we've now got another piece of terminology, complementary. All right, and notice that the spelling of complementary has got an E here. All right, when it's got an I, it's when you say something nice about someone. You say to someone, gee, that's a nice shirt you're wearing, or that's your hair looks nice. That is what we call a compliment with an I. Complementary means adds up to 90 degrees. Right, so these 2 angles add up to 90 degrees, 66 and 24. They are complementary angles. The next thing is we need to be aware of is what's called a complement. And the complement, again spelled with an E, all right, is just what do we need to make up to 90 degrees. So the complement, the balance of 50 would be 40. All right, That's the complement of 50. Notice the complement of 40 is actually 50. Right, just pause the video quickly and try and work out the complements of these other three. Okay, I think the first one's quite straightforward. The complement of 80 means what must we add to 80 to get to 90? And the answer is 10. All right, now this is less easy. What must we add to 80 plus x to get to 90? Well, we're going to need 10 degrees to get the 90. And then we don't want this plus x. So in fact, minus x. Just confirm for yourself that if you add this to this, you get 90 degrees. And that's what we mean by a complement. All right, I see this here says 90, 0. It should say 90 degrees. Okay. All right, so 80 plus x, we would need to add 10 minus x. Now, knowing that, can you think about what would the complement of 70 minus x be? What would we need to add to 70 minus x to get to 90? Well, we would need 20 degrees. All right, 70 plus 20 is 90, but now we've still got a minus x, so we need a plus x. 20 plus x is the complement of 70 minus x. All right, the next word that we've got, so we've got complementary. Complementary means adds to 90 degrees. The next word we've got is supplementary. Supplementary means adds to 180 degrees. All right, and we've got a rule here which is really important, and that is that angles on a straight line are always supplementary. They add to 180 degrees. And that makes perfect sense with what we learned earlier, because remember, we know that angles around a point add to 180 degrees, so add to 360 degrees. So if this is a straight line, which is 180 degrees, then these three must also add to 180 degrees. And we can check that. 27 plus 90 plus 63 comes to 180 degrees. 150 and 130, those angles are supplementary. They add to 180 degrees. In exactly the same way that we had a complement, we also have a supplement. The supplement is how much we need, and I see we've got this problem here again. This shouldn't say 180, 0. It should say 180 degrees. Okay, so exactly the same idea. Complement, the balance of 90 degrees. Supplement, the balance of 180 degrees. So pause the video briefly and see if you can work out the supplements of each of these angles. Okay, what must we add to 50 to get to 180? And the supplement is 130 degrees. What's the supplement of 80? Well, we would need to add 100 degrees. What's the supplement of 80 plus x? Well, we would need 100 degrees. If we add these things up, at the moment, we're going to get 180 plus x. We don't want the plus x, so we must have a minus x. These two angles, the black one here and the blue one here, add to 180 degrees. 70 minus x, well, we would need 110 degrees to get up to 180, and then we would say plus x. Okay, right, we're going to stop there for today. We are going to ask you to try the questions on page 46 before we see you next time. And remember, we must give a reason, all right? And there's only two reasons that I think we're going to need here, all right, is angles on a straight line and complementary angles. Angles on straight line or complementary angles. And we can even just write comp angles. Okay, we'll look forward to seeing you next time. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.